Right. I think this past Friday, this past Shabbos, was good.
Well, Chaf Av, we know, is the day of the Siyum. And tonight is Tes Vav, actually. So we're 2 weeks behind, approximately.
What are you doing?
Week after next.
Okay.
We're going to be gone the whole week of the 8th. We're going away on Friday. So we're going to be gone from Friday to Friday.
Friday, so there will still be a shiur
Thursday night. Yeah. Right. Uh-huh. I don't know if it's not going to be a family, right? But I don't know if Dr. Spell will be back, then it's not. If you're not here, Joe will probably be here. Anyway, probably will be sure if that Thursday night regardless. Okay. So you can do this quickly. Mashkin Beis Hashalchim, actually, if you know, it's noted by the Tarasim Shal Rishonim that many Rishonim and even some editions of the Yerushalmi call this Masechta Mashkin. After the first Mishnah, yeah. I saw actually referred to that way somewhere today, and he says that they actually had that referring to it. Mashkin Beis Hashalchim Moed, one is allowed to give water to a field which is generally irrigated on Moed, Chol Moed, of course, of Shvis and on Shemitah. This is true about from a fountain, a spring, I should say, which is fresh, new, meaning that it is freshly sprung. And spring, which is already older. Avalomi makes showing, but one cannot use rainwater, and the reason is because that to direct rainwater to your irrigation canal is too much of a tirchav to allow on Chol Moed. Lo make kilon, nor may one use water. Kilon has several interpretations, actually. The Aruch brings down several interpretations. One interpretation of kilon is like from a reservoir as opposed to a spring. Another interpretation is from a deeply dug well as opposed to a well which is close to the surface. That would be the definition of distinction between a spring and a well. A spring is near the surface, a well is deep down. So you actually have to use some arduous means to get the water up. So one cannot use make kilon.
Kilon typically is some kind of like fountain of water. No?
It's silo. Yeah. Actually, the Aruch brings out yet another shot that kilon is a Greek word kelon, and it refers to it's kind of like a I forget what it's kind of like a long pole which is on a pivot, which you pivot down into the well with a bucket on it to pull up the water. So that's yet another interpretation. The kelon is a part of a well, but it's not the well itself, but rather the joist, whatever you call it. Yeah. I don't know what an artesian well is. So in any event, so it says one also cannot make the circles around the grapevines in order to gather and collect the water. So it says I understand an old water, a non-fresh spring, meaning an old spring. So, yeah, because but a freshly sprung spring, it requires tircha yisera. Now the tircha yisera which requires is not immediate; it's actually anticipatory tircha that the walls might fall in. If the walls fall in, you have to rebuild them on Yontif, so that's a problem on Chol Moed. That's a problem. So therefore, actually, when we talk about a mayin shiloyat mitchila, it means it has strongly supported walls, as opposed to mayin shiloyat mitchila, that it's potentially going to collapse, right? Elokrai Meir, maybe you want to say it's Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir allows tircha yisera on Chol Moed. If that's the case, doesn't fit with our Mishnah, because Ramiro and that allows not just to irrigate a field which is normally irrigated, but even allows you the tircha of going and irrigating a field which normally subsists from rainwater, which is called Beis Abal. So obviously our mayor is matir far more than our Mishnah permits, because our Mishnah only allows Beis Hashachin. Rabbi Yosef said Divrei Kol. It really is both Rabbanan and Rei Meir. What is the case which Rabbanan permits a new spring? Not a case where it's a bona fide new spring, but where previously there was one spring and now there are two. Or Shumema there was a very small amount of water, V'niz Barchu, and now it's and now it's became more. So Rei Meir obviously is matir even by Beis Abal. Rabbanan only matir Beis Hashachin, and now Rabbanan also matir Beis Hashachin, only matir Beis Hashachin. They're also only matir, despite what it says in Mishnah, not with a freshly sprung spring, but either an older spring or a new spring which has found new power or has found a new pathway, whatever, but not a true new spring that's not permitted. Okay, the Tani came, and we learned that the mayon sheyotze b'tchila, a mayon which is fresh. Meir says you can use it even if it's brand new, and even in a Beis Abal, even in a normally rainwatered field. You can only use it for a soda Beis Hashachin, and shecharba, which is dried out. You can use on that a spring, and although it doesn't say it explicitly, also of course it has to be that it's not completely new, but somewhat of an old new spring, not a fully new spring. According to Meir, we can use something which is a davar she'eino aved, right? Because Beis Hashachin is potentially davar aved. That's what Rabbanan said. Beis Hashachin shecharba became dry, so it's potential loss, nature loss. But according to Meir, it doesn't have to be davar aved, because you can even do Beis Abal. And also, it can be even davar, but it has to be davar, and here the carbonate of change gears is very important, the davar she'eno shviach. Has to be something which is not a big tircha, meaning that even Rei Meir doesn't allow, he allows the mind, but he doesn't allow make shami or make kilo, right? He's more lenient on a well, on a spring. He might even allow you to use a freshly sprung spring, but it has limitations. Not to go and collect rainwater from a reservoir or from a deep well, that's not permitted. Okay? So it says, Rabbanan are more machid. They say, ella the davar shu aved. It has to be something which is a davar aved, meaning a Beis Hashachin, where if you don't irrigate it, you're up the creek. And levad davar she'eno tircha, and it also has to be something which is not a tircha. When the question is like this, avad v'tarach, what if you have, so according to Meir, you only need davar she'eno tircha, but it can be davar she'eno aved, right? Now, the way the Shai Torah Eretz learns the next question, what about the opposite? If it's davar aved, but a tircha, aved v'tarach ma'amri ba'al, and it should be not Rabbanan but Rei Meir, because obviously Rabbanan require both. Rabbanan require there be aved and not a tircha. Rei Meir said, as long as it's not a tircha, it doesn't matter if it's aved or not. What about the other way? If it's something which is aved but is a tircha, would Rei Meir allow that? Let's start from here. Koshu pseida v'oleches. Anytime there's an ongoing loss, zoi Beis Hashachin. That's considered to be Beis Hashachin. On the milachish, if it no longer is getting lost, meaning perhaps you were not conscientious of watering before, and obviously depleted or the minute ruined the field, but now it's for pollen, right? There's nothing to do anymore. Zu Beis Abal, let's go Beis Abal. And machlokas Rei Meir the chachamim. This is machlokas Rei Meir and chachamim. Now, this we see here. The Meir also agrees that if it's a aved, but Torah, what? And tircha, if it's then Rei Meir doesn't allow it. Because he says that. What's that? How does that work out? Yeah. The Beis Hashach. Oh, okay, because by Beis Habal's machlokas Rei Meir and Chachamim. So it's dafka davar she'eino aved. No. Sorry. It's dafka, it must be if there's machlokes by Beis Habal, right? So we're talking about even davar aved, right? No, even Rameir and Rabban's machlokes whether it has to be davar aved or not. But it must be that Meir agrees that it can't be a tircha. Okay, that's what you have to. In other words, Meir must hold that if it's avad and torach, it's no good, because otherwise there should have also machlokes Beis Hashachin. I got it right. Okay, yeah. It says here quite explicitly in this statement that the only machlokes is by Beis Habal. That means the machlokes is clearly only about whether I allow something which is not a tircha, even where it's not a davar aved. Because if there's a machlokas about something which is a tircha by davar aved, they should not just argue by Beis Habal, they should also argue by Beis Hashachin.
Beis Habal, there is no tircha, but it is a davar aved.
No, Beis Habal is not a davar aved.
It's not?
Because normally it's just rainwater.
So, it's not a tircha, it's not a davar aved. The mayor holds that it's mutter.
Right.
Implying that only if there is a tircha, even to a...
No, it's Rabbanan required tarti l'tivusa. They require 2 miles, right?
The mayor would sufficient.
Aved and eino tircha. The mayor is sufficient and eino tircha, right?
But it could be both.
True. But
As long as you have one, it could be...
no, that was the Gemara's question. What would our mayor say where it's a davar aved but a tircha? And the Gemara says you have a right, the mayor doesn't allow that. Because otherwise it's being malchus that Meir Rabbanan by Beis Hashachin. Yeah, you should allow by Beis Hashachin using mei kilom, or using the well water, or using the rain reservoir water. If there's no such machlokas, the Mazir Meir specifically allows in the case where it's not a tircha, whether it's aved or not. But he would not allow aved with a tircha.
So what happens by Beis Habal, is a davar aved, but there is
no such thing.
No such thing as what?
Beis Habal davar aved.
Because it's simply going to rain.
Right. If it doesn't rain, people don't irrigate it. It's not done. Right.
So therefore, you have one element that it's not a tircha, and therefore Meir is still magic. Okay.
Right.
Implying that that's all you need is one element.
Right. But we see that it doesn't flip. It doesn't flip. In other words, if you have the other element, that it's aved, but it's a davar aved, but it's not, and a tircha, that Rameir doesn't allow. Because otherwise, you should have by Beis Hashachin, which is davar aved, we allow much more, not just mayon, but anything else as well. Okay? There is a little machlokas because Rameir seems to allow a mayon sheyotza b'tchila mamish, and Rabbanan only allow a mayon which like made a new path or something like that. But if Rameir was matir tircha mamish by davar aved,
that's not tircha yisera.
That's not tircha yisera, right? Tircha yisera would be make kilon and make shami. Okay, says Mara. Ad kamati shevet yosef Beis Hashachin. Now, the Shai Torah Eretz Yisrael changes the whole meaning here, and he's probably right. But he says he throws in the word Beis Habal. So it says the kamati shevet yosef Beis Hashachin Beis Habal. In other words, a Beis Hashachin means it's regularly irrigated. How long is it after you deprive it of water is it considered to be a Beis Habal? Okay. The conventional way of understanding more is when is it an emergency that Beis Hashachin should require water? They're allowed to do it on Chol HaMoed. Okay, that's if you don't throw in the words Beis Habal. How competition for Beis Hashachin? When is it a pressing need? And then the answer is Ad Kadei Shetisha Shnaim Shlosh Yom Kodem Regel. If you didn't give water 2 or 3 days before you have to begins. But the Shai Torah itself only has a riot from the Lashon Mishnah and Shvi says competition for Beis Hashachin Beis Habal. How long does it take for a Beis Hashachin to revert the Beis Habal? It says, well, you may not water it on Yontif, on Chol HaMoed. So on that he says, actually he takes the Nishmina Min Hador from the next line, the 4th line, puts on the beginning of the 3rd line. Shmina Min Hador Akadei Shetisha Shnaim Shlosh Yom Mikodem HaRegel. If for 2 or 3 days before Yontif you didn't water it, it indicates you're not concerned with constant watering. That renders your Beis Hashachin and Beis Habal, and you're now allowed to water the Chol HaMoed. That's what I want to do. This there was a case of Chavre, which is either a river or a certain type of reservoir, I don't know exactly. Anyway, it dried out 3 days before Yontif. The Chazar Moed and got better, and on Yontif the river started flowing again. So the question was, can you start irrigating, or is it already considered to be a base of body? You can't irrigate on Yontif. Asub the Rabbi Chuna, so it came from Rabbi Chuna. Varmei said, Ilain ta'ak kashin yishtayon, those which became weakened, they should be given irrigation. In V'lo kashin, those which will not be weakened, mean they can wait till after Yontif, it's not a dover oved, they lo yishtayon, they shouldn't be given irrigation on Chol Moed. Rabbi Yosa, Horon, they paskin, Bahada Mikris de Tzalia. There's a case where a certain field in a place called Tzalia, which was to have a Zroin Sarin, which was planted with barley, but which was going to go bad if you wouldn't harvest it over Yontif because it was going to dry. It had some sort of blight on it. The so they actually allowed it to be harvested on Chol Moed, that they shouldn't become dry and scatter around. So it's actually, we see for Dover Oved, it's not just necessarily permissible to do watering, it's even permissible to do harvesting, which is a bigger chiddush perhaps. It says more, Nicha Mei Keilon, I understand Mei Keilon is difficult, either because it's a well or a reservoir. We make shaman, just let it rain and just to the rain. So before it goes to your field, what's the big deal? Rabbi Yochanan goes to make shaman, Shenei make Keilon. They made Xer make shaman unless we allow make Keilon as well. Rabbi B'Shem Rabbi said, Lo Shana El B'Moed. It's only on Chol Moed that we don't allow make Keilon, make shaman. But on Shemitah mutter. What's the difference? Ma bein Shvius, ma bein Chol Moed. What's the difference between Shvius and Chol Moed? Shvius, Adeshin, Muters, Malacha. But Shemitah really allowed to do Malacha, right? It's now to improve your land. So they allowed you to do this, which is really preserving your land, which is mutter during Shemitah, whether it's a big tircha or not, and it means you can even use make kilo, make shamim. Moed, however, Chol Moed, Adeshu, also from Malacha, since Chol Moed is actually part of Yontif, and forbidden to Malacha, they did not allow just the el davar shaved. They only allowed something who was a good davar aved, uvad davar shein otarach, and also can be some which is a tircha. In Easterboy mishmana minadah. Excuse me. There are those who want to derive the distinction between here from here. Shviyas aidesh is man merubeh. Shviyas, since it takes a long time, a year, etir they let you water during the year any way you want. Moed, Aidesh is Marokotzer. Chol Moed, where the time is shorter, so then also they forbade you to water during Shemitah. They said wait, right? Unless it's a Dobro Aved. Also Shiva, now this is a cool, by the way, this, the Chol Noid Behuda, the senior Yerushalmi brings down here, he found this one of his famous Noid Behuda allowed shaving Chol Moed. So, he talks about this Gemara, about, why do you allow shaving Chol Moed? So obviously for shaving, I didn't look at the whole truth, but I think that what he says is that for shaving, so Chol Moed is a long time, so that's why you don't have to wait. It's only that effect, right? And it's based on this Gemara, the discussion, whether shaving is mutter or not on Chol Moed. So name it. I guess because you saw on top page you could harvest barley, so why not be able to harvest your hair, right? So name it. But maybe also only was matter for Dover, like somebody had to do for their job or something like that. So here's a whole discussion. Very famous tshuva. Says the Gemara. Also, the Gemara seems to propose this, but not passing necessarily this way. The last 7 days of the Shemitah year, according to the second spar, it should be also to do work. Why? Because it's like Chol Moed, it's man kotzer already. Right? So I have to say, also in Shiva Yom HaAchronim Lo Mistabra, it does not make sense. B'Av Dinam B'Shiva Yom HaRegel to make it like 7 days young to be a story, they should be also. Okay? Rabbi Yirmiyah asks, Mei Tamtzil Shlo Pasku. Now, Mei Tamtzil is really water which is coming down the mountain after a heavy rain. So what's their status? Are they like a spring, or are they like rainwater? Okay, what's the status? Vis-a-vis using them on Chol Moed or using them on Shvis. Meitam Shlo Pascha, they're still running down the water mine. What's the status? Reishina Min Adot, so now from here actually, which has to do with Mikvos. Ele Meitam Tzios, water Meitam Tzios, Kozman Chok Shom Yordim, as long as it's actually raining. Vahorim Botatim, and the water is gushing down the side of the mountain, and there it goes on this Tosefta, which according says, Harei Henkem Omayin, at that time the water is like a spring. And you can toivel stuff in it. Paskru Shami, when the rain stopped. Avo Pisharim Botatim, even though water is running down the mountainside, Harei Henkem Tamtios, they're like water dribbling off literally dribbling time just means coming off of, and that means it's not a mine anymore. You can't toivel anymore, because once rainwater is not coming down actually, then it has to go into a mikveh in order to toivel. Paskemilios Botatim, once they've stopped running down the water and they collect, they're like collected pools of water where you can actually toivel. Now, how long is it considered to be May Tamtios vis-a-vis our like a mayan vis-a-vis our halacha that you can use it to water your fields on Shemitah or during Chol Moed. So Chia bar China, who is it? China bar Bun, what? Chia bar Bun b'shem Rabbi Yochanan Akadesh Tifrach Chavris. Now nobody knows what these words mean. Tifrach Chavris, what does that mean? So I'm just going to learn more or less like the Korban Eidah, which is until they become dig a deep furrow in the ground. Chavris is miloshon chafira. So tifrach chavris, and tifrach means to fly, right? So until the furrow flies, meaning until there's a marked furrow in the ground, it's no longer considered to be a mayan. Right? A mayan is something which wells up, springs up. It's not springing up. So tifrach chavris means until it becomes a very significant furrow in the ground. Rabbi Lezer b'shem Rabbi Tanchum b'Chechia said, "Akadesh yasu kragli avaz." No, if it's a significant current in the ground, it's still okay until the currents actually scatter into like chicken feet, meaning that they're little rivulets as opposed to one torrent. If there's little rivulets, you can't use it on Chol Moed, to water your field or on Shemitah, but it's still one torrent, that's okay. Now, Rabbi Yirmiyah comes and asks a Rabbi Yirmiyah question. Rabbi Yirmiyah, boy, you know type of question is coming. Parcha chavis v'lo pascha. Now, it's an interesting thing, although it's not clear exactly for the Gemara what the kasha is. I believe the kasha is like this: you have a torrent, and then it becomes like chicken feet, but then it becomes a torrent again. In other words, it's like one gush separates out, and then it becomes a gush again. So, what's the status of this rivulet, this Chol Moed, right? So it says more or like for tefillah actually as well. Is it like a mayan from here on in retroactively? Meaning even a place where it's like chicken feet, is it a mayan? Or Mikano Haber only where it becomes one big gushing flow again? Laida Milu, what's the difference? Why do we have to know this? So he says that the nafkamina is litba machtin sinoros. Of course, you're not going to toivel your own personage there. It's not enough water to dip a human being in. But he wanted to toivel in the mayan little needles and pins. We know needles and pins, they don't need the sheer 40 saw of rainwater. They don't need in any mayan you can toivel them, even though there isn't 40 saw. So, you're not aware of this? Yeah, you don't need the 40 saw for pins and needles. For kalim. As long as it's a mayan. Okay? Obviously, a human being theoretically doesn't need 40 saw either, but he's not going to fit in much less than 40 saw if he wants to toivel. So, amen. So, why do we know? He'd build machdin saros. And they're going to say that since it began as one flow, it ends as one flow, retroactively, even where it's like chicken feet, it's considered to be one flow. Taru, then if you dunk things in the chicken feet area, it's tar. In Tamer Kanalab, you're going to say only where it becomes a torrent, low tiru, in the case where it's like chicken feet, it's not tar. Rabbi Yossi asked, Elaine asked, Iktrategia. In any end, it's an aqueduct. according to most of the portion. An aqueduct, matavilon, is what it's status. It's can make kilon, is like a well, right? Or when it can make kilon is not like a well. Now, bear in mind, we said make kilon has another interpretation, which is not just a well, but also a reservoir. So an aqueduct is really coming from a reservoir.
Sorry, I missed that.
I don't know how you pronounce it.
Got you.
Something like that, but we don't even know. It might be the mispronunciation of the Greek itself, right? So we have no idea. But anyway, we said one interpretation of kilon is not just a well, but also like a reservoir. So Shas, what's that? It's an aqueduct. It's like make kilon, and if it's no good, like a reservoir, or it can make kilon, therefore it's good. We don't know. Similarly, if you have a pool which came full from a spring, but now the pool of spring is no longer feeding it, allowed to use water from that on Yontif. The Shmina does start from here. Make sure rain water is not allowed to use rainwater nor let's call it well or reservoir water. About when the rain is coming down. Didn't we say already before that that's good? It should be kemushakim l'yama gadolhim. They're like connected like to the Great Sea. Now, the way I want to understand that here is not the Great Sea of the Mediterranean, although that's what all the Mepharshim say, but rather like the Great Sea in the Beis HaMikdash. The Yama Gadol was the shiur, right? And of course, you're allowed to use the shiur on Yontif, right? Even a Chol Moed, even the other itself. So that's I think where he means to say that if at the time the rain is falling, it's like water which comes out of the Yam and the Beis HaMikdash. Of course, you're allowed to use. There's no shiloh about that. El Kenekem is this rather shiloh. B'shosh a paskuk shamim, where at the time the rain has ceased. Can I still use the rainwater which is in the pool? So it says, Ma'im b'shosh a paskuk shamim. If you could and if you say that, Im b'shosh a paskuk shamim, lo kebrecha she'ismalas min hamayim is not like a pool which came full from a spring. V'imsik hamayim mitochim the spring stopped. It says here where the rain stopped pouring into the pool, he can't use it for anything. So to here, Adamara, it teaches also that a pool which came full from a spring, and the spring stopped, he can't use it to water your field. If you have a pool which became full from a reservoir or from a well, which makes it also, right, because it doesn't come from a proper source. So you can't use that in Moed. Now you put a well spring into it. Can use it. There's like machshirin. Now you can use it for the purpose of watering on Yontif. So it says, let's hear from here. Sada Beis HaShalchin. If you have a Sada Beis HaShalchin, which of course you're allowed to water on Chol Moed, Shenitovel Toch Sada Beis HaShalchin Acheres, which starts dripping water into another Beis HaShalchin, mashkin you can give it water from the first Beis HaShalchin and spill it over to the second Beis HaShalchin. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, as long as there's still a dribble going from the first Beis HaShalchin to the second Beis HaShalchin. So it says, I understand, do you think that the dribble is enough to give adequate water? Lo machmatz atzmo shimaleo. Yeah.
Connection. It only makes sense to
it may be Yashaka. It could be. It's not the way Korban Adam learns it. I don't know very much on it, but it could be. I'm not denying it might be, but let me learn it this way since I don't remember seeing anybody says that. So it says more. What the drip drop is enough to give the lower field where it's dropping into enough to irrigate it. Low machmas hatrish so can't be. So low machmas hashimle, it must be that the upper field is full of water independently, right? Va'ata mar mashkimena, you can use it because it's part of his dripping. So it tells us that a pool which is full from the well or from a reservoir, which theoretically you could not use. But once you put the well into it, mashkim, you can use it actually for watering. Which is very interesting. It's almost like a mikveh. Hashaka works for a mikveh, or to make it kosher. So there for Chol Hamoed, they gave a similar halacha. As long as there's water coming from a permissible source, at the same time it's coming from a forbidden source, it's okay. So if you have a brechel which is full of rainwater, but you now attach the mayim to it, so that's sufficient to allow you to use it to water your field. The Tai Shmuel came. Shmuel also taught us this. Haposkin ma'brecha. Haposkin is like a kind of reservoir, a pool. That shemilon kono l'regel, which you filled up before Yontif. Lo yashka memi regel, can't use a Yontif because that's rainwater. It's a reservoir. However, if a legitimate irrigation canal is passing through them, mashkmehem, then you can use the pools as well. Then you need not refrain. Period. One may not make circles around the vineyards. The grapevines, what are they? Both means isolation. But what isolates here means each tree has its own water supply, because make a depression, a concave depression in the ground. Yeah, Bedinin. I misread it, but I think that's what it comes from. There, Yada Badid Arba. This has to do with Tumantara, and the handle of a body is 4. In any event, the body is a round thing, and so too this is a round water collection ditch at the base of the grapevine. Now let's make that on Chol Hamoed. Rabbi Elazar is not allowed to make an irrigation ditch. To begin with, Moed B'Shvius. You have to use pre-existing irrigation ditches. You're allowed to make new ones B'Shvius. We're talking about what's called to fix the broken ones, but even on Chol Hamoed. Now to make new ones of Chol Hamoed, we'll have to fix the broken ones of Chol Hamoed. We're talking is Kilkulei, you can fix the ruined waterways, Shebashusra in public domain. Chodin son, you can dig out any refuse in them. When we're talking Mr. Drachim, you can fix potholes. Highways. There's a call in streets. There's mikvos mayim and water gatherings. You can do all needs of the masses. And point out and mark graves. You have to kind of make sure climber not growing. All this you can do a Chol Hamoed, all tzarchei haklal. Okay. Says about let's talk about when can you take out fertilizer to your field. So Elazar forbids you take fertilizer in your field because it looks like you're fertilizing your field. Until you make the level which you're putting the fertilizer either 3 tefachim lower, or 3 tefachim higher, or actually can also put the fertilizer, the dung on a rock, so it doesn't look like you're fertilizing. Everybody knows you're just making a dung heap. So patlam betray pace, and there are 2 ways of learning this actually.
This is strictly by a Chol Hamoed?
Yeah.
Not for
Not for Shabbos, no.
No.
It's actually not, no, it's Shvius. No, it's Shvius. It's a mission of Shvius. It's a mission of Shvius. That's recording. Actually, we're going to cross-reference back here. So it says more, Basle train pattern. There are 2 ways of understanding that. One is, B'Shel Mevak, B'Shel Dover Mot B'Soch, and here it should say Sodein. You had already a little fertilizer in your field. Merev Shvius from before Shemitah. You want to get more fertilizer in your field on Shemitah, right? So, you continue adding fertilizer. Over Avera. Once people who are actually fertilizing no longer outside fertilizer, it doesn't no matter sign. Rabbi Elazar still forbids it. My time, Rabbi Elazar, what's last? Rabbi Elazar, Shemalain, because maybe you won't find any other fertilizer.
It's only 2 today?
Only 2. We davened. We were afraid because there's no meaning for Mincha today.
No meaning for Mincha today?
No.
Why?
Because there wasn't. There were only 6.
You should have called upstairs. I was upstairs with a meeting, but we were going upstairs. We wasn't at 40.
Yeah, well, Rabbi Kattan didn't want to call you guys. So that's how you do it.
You want to come though?
We'll come. We'll sit and learn inside. What? Okay. Okay. So So after, so my time is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Shem Elohim tilo zevel. He might not find fertilizer. Need some zabos or some mokum. In other words, retroactively, this is going to be his fertilizer. At the time he did it, he might not think he's going to do something wrong, but eventually he's going to end up doing something wrong because he'll realize I have no other fertilizer. Stop. After Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is going like Rabbi Yossi. Kima. To Rabbi Yossi, Amar Ein Zevel Matzui. Just like Rabbi Yossi said, well, there isn't enough fertilizer. There isn't enough dung. Now he said in another context. He said that economically there's a problem with fertilizer. You can't find enough fertilizer. But Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, you know what? Since there's not enough fertilizer, I'm afraid if I let him put out his fertilizer in the field without making any hecker, so then who knows, this is going to end up being his fertilizer for the season. So therefore we're not going to let him get away, therefore we're not going to let him do Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah ain't zevel b'matzli. There's not enough zevel, so therefore there's not enough zevel, so therefore they have to make the special takana lest he come actually to use this dung during Shemitah to be his zevel for the year. That's one interpretation. Pasal chori is another interpretation. Kshayolo davar memuat besoch beso be'erev shvius. It's not when he had a little bit out in his fields, and he's going to add on that, but he had a little bit in his house erev Shemitah. He wants to take it out during his field from shvius. So harezev hold mostly for holech mishi pasku over aver. So the first opinion is that they can do that once the people who are fertilizing their fields cease. In other words, nebuch, there are always people who are transgressing Averis and fertilizing their fields illicitly. Once they stop doing that, we're allowed to go ahead and take out our fertilizer to our fields. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah oiser. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says it's not permitted, even after the over Averis stop. Why? My time with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Shem Elohim tilo zevel. Maybe we won't find fertilizer. We need some zabos or some mokum, and it's fertilizing that place. So it says the Gemara. Now this is going back on the Reisha. The Reisha said he already had zevel in his field, and he's taking other zevel on Shemitah. So I asked him, well, what's the problem? I understand that he already have zevel out there, since he already had zevel out there, so he's not doing anything additional now. What's the problem? You were saying we're afraid, but there already was zevel out there. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Chiyab b'shem Rabbi Bar Memel said Ibnei Maris Ayin, because it looks like Maris. It looks like he's actually. It's really not like we said before. Before we said we're afraid he's going to leave out the fertilizer, and that's going to be his fertilizer for the year. But now we're saying you already had fertilizer out there. So what's the problem? So it says the Maris Ayin problem. So how do you get around the Maris Ayin problem? So that it says, so that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah will agree that if you take out a lot of dung at once, nobody takes out a lot of dung as fertilizer. That's a dung heap. So then there's not going to be a Maris Ayin problem. They take out a lot of dung at once. As the Gemara, Maris Ayin is the real thing. The Maris Ayin. The Rabbanan not hold the concept of Maris Ayin. So Rabbi said the Rabbanan don't, because the Chutra, his stick, Salo, his basket, Umagrefo, his rake, Mochichin Ulav Shoysa Ashba, they demonstrate that he's making a dump, not making a fertilizing. In other words, there are ways of telling that a person is not out to fertilize, but where a person is out to discard his dung. Rabbi Yosef ben Amrei, Rabbi Yosef ben Arbun said, this stuff about garbage, the Tanina Tamon, is the same thing as that which we learned over here about not making in our Mishnah that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer Eino Simas Abba B'Tchil B'Moed B'Shvius. So he says the sugyas are parallel. That which you're not allowed to take out your fertilizer on Shvius is the same thing as not being allowed to make your canals on Chol HaMoed. They're both issues of Maris Ayin. Okay, so it says it's both issues of Maris Ayin, both over here and over there, right? Rabbi Yirmiyah, by us it's not an issue of Maris Ayin. It's an issue of Machshir Zradel Israel. if you cut a riverbank on Chol Hamoed, then that riverbank is actually going to make it facilitate the use of the sides of the bank for planting. So the Isser actually is not an Isser of Marasayin, it's a real Isser of improving your land. It's like Isser Malacha Mamish, right? Rabbi Yirmiyah Bar Buchia B'Shem Bar Memel said, we just said this before, Marasayin. I'm a boy made. We want to say, Yerushalmi Taman and Achar reverse. Manor Tamination Machitz and Elizriya, right? You're preparing it. It's a malacha. The ka over there by Zevo Ma'islach. What's the problem by Zevo? Is over there. Leislach Elakada. So obviously he holds it's not Marasayin, but rather Shem Elohim to Lo Zevo Menim to Mezabel Sosamokum because he won't find fertilizer. So it's the first reason. So it works out very well because the Marasayin reasons are consistent in both, and the alternate reasons, which are that here you're doing malacha, and over there you might find that you might use the fertilizer, they're consistent as well. Now, what's the difference between the two perspectives? Chafer lasos amar binyan. You're digging to make an amos like a foundation of your building, right? Have a boy made they want to say Marasayin, the carbonate Marasayin, the same Marasayin issue on digging foundations on Yontif, just like you have the issue of digging Marasayin on digging a canal, right? However, if the issue is a real issue of preparing for Zriya, you're obviously not doing it for the purpose of being Machshel Zriya. But every year agrees, if you have there in place stones or so Avonim are large stones, Tzoros are little stones. Seed is plaster, Ogifsis I think is lime, or one is seed is lime, so Ogifsis is plaster. So then Mutzer because there's no Marasayin because it's like you're demonstrating they do it for the purpose of building. Now, I don't know. I think building. I didn't even think when I was preparing, but car building is also also during Chol Hamoed. No, during Shemitah it's not. But I'll tell you about it Chol Hamoed.
Actually building a building.
Yeah, building a building, isn't it?
Should be.
So the Pnei Moshe Dakabar warns my kasha. He says in our Mishnah, it said, Ein asim etzla amma b'tchila b'moed ubishvis. So we're not talking about of course on Chol Moed they both be aser, but a Shemitah, if the issue is Marasayin, so both should be aser. But if the issue is that you're machshir tzarel zriya, which of course is forbidden activity during Shemitah, so then by Amos Habinyan, you won't have the problem, and of course everybody agrees that you can tell that the guy's building during Shemitah, there's no problem as well. Okay, Mesachne is some cool close by Moed. You can fix broken stuff on Moed. Davar shul tzarech hamoed. Says davar shul tzarech hamoed. However, davar she'en tzarech hamoed aser. If it's not tzarech hamoed, it's aser. Says Mar b'shel yachid. Also, it's only b'shel that limitation rather is only by that which belongs to an individual. But to fix something which is b'shel rabim, I feel davar she'en tzarech hamoed mutter. Even if it's not tzarech hamoed, it's mutter. It's a tremendous kula. Which means you can fix stuff for after Yontif on Yontif itself. On Chol Hamoed himself, despite the fact that it's not necessary now for Chol Hamoed. Says Gemara Kehadah, the Gemara brings a case. Kehadah, a case, the bane of the bathhouse, the Sachusa, in a place called Sachusa, Isbecha b'Moada. It became ruined on Chol Hamoed, and they didn't need it obviously for Yontif anymore for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe the last days didn't go to the bathhouse. He allowed them to remake it on Yontif. So B'triach, even though it's a Tircha Yisera, right? Even though it's a tremendous Tircha. Says the Gemara, Now here, it's not clear exactly how to read this next line. Sorry. But it seems like it means that v'kivnu, were they mechavin intentionally to make on a chol hamoed, to do it on chol hamoed. Now, it sounded before like it's collapsed on chol hamoed, but I guess that's not the case. It probably collapsed before chol hamoed. It was still collapsed on chol hamoed, and they left the malacha to be done on chol hamoed. So it says, "Mar hakim mechavin malacha b'moed." It's not permitted to be mechavin malacha b'moed. So how they do that? So it says, "Mara lo savrum meimar." Though they hold vachlo yechavin is malach b'moed, now let me mechavin malacha chol hamoed. I mean, they said, nevertheless, in lo mistabdina kadun, lo mistabna od. If we don't do it now, we won't be able to do it at all. So in Achanami, there are permissibilities to be mechavim malach b'moed, and I guess people were free to involve themselves in public labor on chol hamoed in a way they weren't able to do the rest of the time when they were working for themselves. So he allowed to be mechavim malach b'moed l'tzarech the rabbi. That's what it comes down. I'll stop here.